I'd say my three brothers are the three most important people in the world to me. And so losing one of them was a worst nightmare. I think the shock of that just took away a lot of the fears that you have towards doing other crazy things. So I had been thinking about a pivot, and William passing away just made it clear that, we don't have all the time in the world, and it's the things that sometimes you put to the back burner that are most important in life. Even from the end of my engineering degree, I was considering a pivot into something more creative. Yeah, a couple of things were at play and they converged towards this honors year. It was COVID making me feel homesick towards the place that I was from, William's death giving me the impulse to do something that I'd been too afraid to do previously, and just the enormous weight of that loss and a desire to confront that in some way. So the project had two components to it. There's the practical side of the project and then the conceptual side of the project. In terms of the conceptual side, that I started by looking at dream analysis. So over the 5 years since William passed away, I had been recording any dream that I had with William in it. And I had all that material, and I wanted to find a way to include it in the project. I mean, at the beginning, it started all over the place. I think I didn't look at it with the end product in mind. Instead, I looked at what was all the material that I had to explore around William. We had done a week-long module on narratology as part of the course, and this ended up coinciding very well with my desire from the beginning of the year to come up with a visual story of grief and loss. In the course, one of my main takeaways was the constructed nature of narrative, the idea that any narrative is very much fabricated. And so understanding that, particularly with something as complicated as grief, helped me to see that I was going to need to pare down the concept into something that had one single through thread. In terms of approaching the practical side of the project, I was interested in doing traditional media. Having come from digital media prior, I did not quite realize how on the back foot I was. I think it felt like I was drawing for the first time ever. It was very, very intimidating having to reveal my rough sketches, reveal the ugly pictures in the first two terms. So yeah, it was very, very intimidating, but it was a big push to get me to try new things and grow. One of the biggest links in this entire year, I think, for me was the Diane Victor course. And she hosted a workshop which allowed people to experiment with drawing and hone in on their creative practice. So that was the first time that I tried out charcoal, and that ended up being one of the final mediums. And then I also went back to gouache after the course, and that became the second medium for the final exhibition. She had mentioned at some point in the course that an exhibition doesn't hold together unless there's a through thread. And so with that realization, I decided that doing multiple metaphors on grief was not going to carry a strong exhibition, and I instead wanted to pivot to the bond around travel. With William being 9 years older than me, and I watched William when I was a child traveling all around the world. He took study abroads and trips with his friends. So his life to me just looked like the ultimate adventure. Yeah, the final exhibition first came together with the trip we didn't take. And that was the one to South America. And I wanted to visualize that as a series of painted illustrations that would carry you through moments in an imagined trip between two siblings. And then as I was working on that series, I had done some charcoal exploration over the holiday. And one of the first charcoal drawings that I did was just a drawing of the labyrinth that's held in New Bethesda. So this is something that my dad had built in honor of my brother. And that made me think about all the places that I have traveled in the last 5 years without William, and how I had been using travel as a way to connect with William. I wanted to go on as many trips as possible in the hope that I would feel closer to William. And while I was doing these trips, I would also write to William. So I kept a journal the whole time, and whenever I had a happy thought around William, I would put it down in the journal to him and let him know just what I was doing and the places I was seeing without him. It was a way to hold him in the present. In many ways, I think the trips were disappointing. Very often, it just felt very isolating. I didn't feel his presence, and instead I just felt his absence. When I was looking back through all the dream journals, I was finding that in so many of them, there was the presence of water. Either I was swimming, or I was by the ocean, or there was waves crashing. Just it was an element that came in so many of the dreams. And it's something that I think has deep ties with myself and my family. And I thought it also is a good element that represents kind of the multi-layeredness of grief and the way that it changes and shifts. I decided to bring it in through a river specifically, and I thought this would be a great element as it represents how William was like a guide in my life. One of the things I needed to do with this project was find a way to represent William, and the artist that really helped finding a way through that was Peter Doig. So Peter Doig mentions how he gives figures just as an entry point into a scene, and that lets the viewer be drawn in, and then their attention goes to the surroundings, or it goes to the mood of the paintings. And I thought that that's really the essence that I want to capture in my paintings, that the figures of me and William can be your access to the feeling that is held within. So William, probably more than anyone in our family, was an absolute perfectionist. While I was making the exhibition, I kind of had the voice of William in my head saying, that's not straight. Did you center that? Are you going to clean up that mark? Did you smudge paint on the side? And so I think I tried to sort of make an exhibition that I know would suit William and his tastes. And because of that, I wanted it to be pristine, because in my mind, he held his life in a pristine way. So the exhibition has 3 parts to a story. The first part is places that I traveled without William over the last 5 years. So I've put together these postcards. On the front of each postcard is a drawing of a place that I went, and on the back of the postcard is a letter that I wrote to him in my journal. And then the second part of the exhibition is the trip that we didn't take together. And so that's a series of gouache paintings that explores 2 siblings traveling through the Amazon rainforest. The series ends with a postcard here in Stellenbosch. It's a picture of the Eerste Rivier that is next to the place that I stay. And that postcard represents really where I found William is where I am right now. Our bond together is strong enough to hold his memory in the present, and that it doesn't have to be an external search. I can find him right here. You know, a story, it needs an end, right? But real life doesn't have an end. And so, you know, I think there's been a lot of good that has come from this year, but the pain is still very real for me, and it's going to be real after this. So I think this is one part of a much longer process to navigate the loss of William.